If you signed a student loan at 18, stop what you're doing. By 34, I realized I'd wasted a decade of my life, and it all started with a 10-second signature. At 18, you sign a piece of paper. 10 seconds. No second thoughts. Everyone's doing it. Teachers, parents, guidance counselors. They call it investing in your future. But what they don't tell you, that signature will trap you in a cycle you can't escape for the next 20 years. Two people, same age, same start. One signed, one didn't. By 34, their lives aren't just different. They're night and day. This isn't a loan. It's a prison. And you sign the bars. Fast forward 4 years. You're both 22. One of you graduates with a degree and $31,000 in student debt. The other has no degree, but no debt either. They've spent the last 4 years working. Everyone around you says the graduate is ahead, degree in hand, on track for success. The worker? They are behind. No degree, just a job. But here's the brutal truth no one tells you. That ahead is a lie. Adulthood doesn't care about your degree. It cares about cash flow. Can you pay rent? Can you cover repairs? Can you afford a basic life? The graduate can't. The worker? They're just getting started. Comment yes if you've ever been told, get a degree to get ahead, only to feel stuck later. First major split: rent, loans, and the path to stability. The graduate looks at 2 apartments. Apartment 1, $1,750 a month. Small studio, poor lighting, an old building. The window faces a brick wall. Apartment 2, $2,150 a month. 1 bedroom, cleaner, safer, more space. But the difference is $400, almost exactly the student loan payment. The graduate chooses the cheaper apartment, the one they tell themselves is temporary. But when they walk in and see the brick wall outside the window, they know it's not just temporary. It's the cost of that 18-year-old signature. The cost of listening to everyone who said this is the right path. Second major split: the car repair dilemma. A year later, both cars need repairs. $820. Nothing fancy, just adult life being adult life. But for the graduate, it's a crisis. The graduate puts it on the credit card. Not because they're reckless, because they have no other choice. The student loan was due 5 days ago. Rent is in 10. There's no slack, no room to breathe. Just a number that tightens their chest, a reminder that their life isn't their own. The other one pays cash. Not comfortably, but directly. No panic. No credit card debt piling up. Just a choice they can make, because they're not chained to a 10-second signature. Rule 2. Student debt doesn't just cost money. It punishes you for being human. Student debt doesn't just cost money. It makes every normal problem harder to recover from. When you need to transition, to make a change, it punishes you. It locks you into the rhythm of survival. No room to breathe. No room to grow. At 24, job choices and the freedom to pivot. At 24, both of you are looking for a better job. The graduate finds a job in their field. Starting pay, $46,000. Then, a more boring job outside the field. Pay, $58,000. The extra $12,000 doesn't feel like much. It's not luxury. It's not freedom. It's just enough to keep the monthly cycle going, to pay the loan, the rent, the credit card. It's survival, not living. The non-graduate takes a job that pays less initially. They move to a new city. They switch careers. They mess up. They try again. And you know what? They can. Because there's no $387.42 monthly bill hanging over their head, forcing them to choose stability over passion. They have room to grow, room to fail, room to win. The graduate? They don't have that luxury. Rule 3. Once debt sets your floor too high, it starts filtering your future. At 26, the raise that doesn't feel like freedom. At 26, the graduate gets a raise. $6,000 a year. For a brief moment, they feel relief, like maybe, finally, they can breathe. But then life finds a way to fill that gap. A car repair. Rent goes up. A friend's wedding. Life eats away at the extra money. The loan keeps demanding its cut. The relief fades. The cycle continues. But the non-graduate doesn't feel that pressure. When they get a raise, it feels like leverage. They can use that money to move, to invest, to take the next step, to build a life, not just survive it. At 27, the escape hatch. At 27, both of you see a new city as an escape hatch. Lower rent, more space, a fresh start. But the graduate does the math. Moving truck, $1,400. First month's rent, $1,600. Security deposit, $1,900. It's a choice they can't afford. Because the student loan still takes priority, always. Their escape hatch is locked, and they have the key. The non-graduate moves. The move is messy. It's stressful, but it's survivable. And it opens up new opportunities. Opportunities the graduate can only dream of. Because freedom isn't about having it all. It's about having a choice. Rule 4. The non-graduate isn't thriving, but they have choice. At 28, money and relationships. At 28, relationships start showing the effects of money. The graduate meets someone they really like. They want to travel. They want to take risks. But the numbers don't add up. Flights, job gap, income gap, the student loan. It all piles up. The graduate stays behind. Not because they don't want to go, but because the loan keeps them grounded, like an anchor dragging them down. It takes priority over everything, even love, even happiness. The non-graduate goes. They take the risk. They move. They create the future they want, not the one they can afford. Because their life is theirs to choose. At 29, the job offer that feels like a mistake. At 29, the graduate sees the perfect job posting. It's a perfect fit. It has long-term upside. It's the job they've always wanted. But it comes with a salary cut. $11,000. They can't afford it. Not because the job isn't right, but because their financial floor is too high. They've become a person whose options are limited by the loan, trapped in a life they didn't choose, even when the perfect opportunity is right in front of them. The non-graduate takes a similar pay cut. For a year, it looks like a mistake, but then it pays off because they could afford to take the risk, because their future isn't filtered by debt. Rule 5. The trap isn't just financial. It's psychological. At 31, the truth about income and freedom. At 31, the graduate's income has risen. They're doing better than they thought they would at 22. But the life still feels constrained. Like they're in a cage, even if the bars are gilded. The final realization, more money doesn't equal more freedom. Freedom comes from the gap between what you earn and what you need to survive. And student debt shrinks that gap year after year. The graduate is competent. They've done everything they were told to do. They've managed their money. They've followed the rules. But they are still stuck in a system designed to keep them in place. The non-graduate has had enough room to be wrong a few times. Wrong city, wrong job, wrong side project, wrong relationship, wrong idea. And because they could survive those wrong turns, one of them eventually became a right one. That's what freedom buys, not comfort. Attempts, choices. Freedom isn't about how much you earn. It's about how much you don't have to pay to someone else. At 34, the final truth. At 34, the student debt is still there. Maybe smaller now. Maybe refinanced. Maybe no longer panic-inducing in the same way. But by this point, the payment is not the whole story anymore. The real story is what it trained. It trained the graduate to fear disruption, to need a certain income rhythm, to see caution as maturity and redesign as danger, to choose the path that would not break the month, even when that path quietly flattened the decade. The trap revealed. The degree was supposed to expand options. Instead, for a lot of ordinary people, the financing structure narrowed them. Not all at once. One apartment, one repair bill, one job offer, one move not taken, one pay cut not survivable, one relationship bent around logistics, 1 year of saying later until later becomes a personality. That is the trap. Not that education has no value, Not that every borrower loses. Not that everyone without debt wins. The trap is simpler and more brutal than that. A lot of people were sold an asset. What they were actually handed was an obligation powerful enough to rewrite adulthood before adulthood had even started. The problem isn't just the number. It's the timing. Borrowing at 18 means the debt gets first claim on the exact years when your life is supposed to be most flexible. Your first apartment years, your first career years, your first relocation years, your first reinvention years. The years when one bold move can still change everything. That's exactly when the bill arrives and starts teaching you the opposite lesson. Stay stable. Stay close to cash flow. Don't let the month break. Don't let the floor crack. Don't choose a future that gets worse before it gets better. That is not education acting like leverage. That is debt acting like a behavior shaping system. Same age, same start. One signed at 18, one didn't. By 34, the difference is not just who earned more. It's who had room to grow, who got to choose their life. And that's what people mean when they say debt is a trap. Not that it hurts, that it chooses too much. It chooses your options, your path. And once it has chosen, there's very little space left to change. If you could go back to 18, would you sign that student loan? Comment yes or no. I'm reading every single one. And if this video made you rethink student debt, subscribe. No fluff, no hype, just the truth about the trap no one tells you.